record.
Hello, Christina Pirello. I'm so pleased and happy and grateful to have you here with us today. I know you're a busy lady, so I really appreciate it. Before we start, having said that, I want to say one amazing thing, and that is I got a positive report from my doctor yesterday. She told me that I have significant improvement, some kind of words like that, and it's fabulous. I am over the moon. I am
Great news. Great news.
excellent. Yeah.
Excellent news.
So
Go get them.
to celebrate, look at this, a passage to India.
So you're going.
I'm going.
Go get them.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Now, I would like to bring in Lenny Jacobs in order to introduce you, Christina. So Lenny is co-host now and moderator for our Whole Health Forum, and we expect great progress going forward. So Lenny.
No pressure, Lenny.
Welcome everybody from all over the world. Some people it's very early in the morning, and some people it's getting late in the day. And we all know that food is a big part of what drives our day. And we have this particularly expert cooking teacher and cook, nutritional expert, of those people who are already aware of Christina's work and her regular TV show know the skill and expertise she brings to her presentations. And instead of it being a cooking class, we wanted to have an opportunity to talk with Christina about how she makes food selections, what food she chooses, why, when, and like what goes on behind the scenes in thinking about making a menu, making a meal, cooking for yourself, your friends, cooking for healing, and cooking for entertaining. So welcome to Christina. Welcome to, right now we have over 40 people. We want 100 people to join us, so tell your friends to sign in now. We have just a little bit over an hour, but I think in that time, Christina could share her insights and experiences and suggestions for how we can all improve our health, our enjoyment of food, and making delicious meals. So Christina, you've been cooking professionally, teaching cooking for 40 years now, 41 years?
I've been teaching for 35 years, cooking professionally since I was 16, so 50 years. Yeah, I spent my entire adult life has been spent in a kitchen, and I would not have it any other way.
So do you never get tired of meal planning and cooking, or how do you avoid, I should say, how do you maintain your enthusiasm?
I think that every single person experiences some level of burnout, some level of, I don't feel like making dinner. The good news about being macrobiotic and vegan for all these years is we don't have the luxury of going, well, let's just order takeout or let's just get a pizza, or we don't have that luxury because, okay, you could do that and then be sick for 2 days or feel awful afterwards. So when I do have burnout, which is rare, it's really rare for me, I put up a pot of water to boil. I have no idea why it works, but suddenly I'm inspired to cook. I have no idea why. It's some mystical thing. Put up a pot of water to boil and suddenly I know what to make for dinner and I'm completely inspired again. We also eat really simply in our house. Like I teach a little more, not complicated, but a little more fancy, I guess you'd say. Like we eat very simply in our house. You know, breakfast is grain porridge and vegetables, and you know, lunch I'll make a bean dish. We eat a lot of protein in our house. A bean dish with some vegetables on the side. And dinner we usually have a bowl of soup and either a salad or a chunk of whole grain bread because we eat really light at night because we eat late. You know, we go to the gym from 6 to 7. I don't start cooking dinner till 7:30. We eat around 8:15. So in order to go to bed at midnight, you know, we eat light at night.
So
we're night people. We're not early morning people. We're night people.
More Mediterranean style, as is your cuisine.
Yeah. I remember teaching in Spain and Danny Mayor said to me, oh, let's go to dinner after class. And I'm thinking, great. So we go and we're sitting by Sagrada Familia and we're drinking cava. And I'm thinking, okay, it's 8:30, it's 9:30. At 10 o'clock, he said, okay, let's go. And we went to like 4 different tapas bars and ate till maybe 12:30. And my husband was in Tuscany with a group. And I called him at 2 in the morning and he's like, what are you doing calling me at 2 a.m.? And I said, I'm buying boots in Barcelona at 2 a.m. We rolled into the hotel at 4:30 and I taught the next morning at 9. So it was just like this crazy, but it was great. But yeah, we're more attuned to that kind of lifestyle. We grew up that way. Both our families are Italian. We ate dinner when my dad got home from work at 8 o'clock. Like that was it, which was very smart of my parents because we were not going out as teenagers. We were staying home and having dinner. So
So when you say you eat simply, what are some of the factors that you use in deciding what would be a meal, how you would combine what foods?
A is seasonality, always. As much as we can, it's always seasonal. And B, it's for us, it's more protein than it is plant protein because we're both vegan. More protein than it is anything else. So every meal for me has a good protein and fat and seasonal veggies. And then we eat whole grain in our house once a day, usually in the morning as a porridge, and then that's it. We might have pasta at lunch, we might not. We might have a chunk of bread at dinner, but we eat like that. It's very simple, very, very, very simple in our house. I mean, I teach a little more, I'm going to say complicated, but it's not complicated because there's so many varieties of dishes that people need to learn. So I teach all these dishes and then, at home we cook like monks.
So colors and besides seasonality, how about colors and flavors and comfort foods versus healing foods?
We don't cook a lot of healing foods. I'm cooking some healing foods right now because both Robert and I are in a challenge, but we're fine. So I'm cooking some healing foods for that. But mostly we cook, I wouldn't say, I mean, I find all the food that we cook comfort food. You make a millet red lentil soup and I'm your girl. Like that's comfort in a bowl for me. Like we're not ice cream people. We're not, like we don't look for that kind of thing for comfort. I do bake cookies pretty often in our house, so that might be a comfort food for us. I have a very long list, Lenny, of foods that I don't like. So my palate is somewhat limited. It starts with avocados and works its way down to Z. It's avocados, beets, cilantro, bananas. Like I have a whole list of things that I don't like texturally or flavor. So our meals are, poor Robert has to go buy bananas on his own if he wants them because there's no way they're coming in this house if I have to shop for them. I don't eat watermelon. I don't eat any melon. So I don't eat tropical fruits. I just don't care for them except grapefruit. But we kind of like color is a big factor. But you can't help but have great color. I mean, you take out some produce from your fridge, you have great color. You've got greens and reds and oranges and, who wouldn't want that? So, I mean, we certainly have carrots and onions year round. Like my favorite vegetable of all time is winter squash. So I'm very happy right now and a little sad that it goes away next month. But, so that kind of seasonality really drives my menus. Absolutely seasonality all the time. Like we don't eat kale and collard greens in the summer because that's not really their season. We'll eat lighter greens and maybe some broccoli or maybe, more bitter greens to kind of honor the seasons. And the more we travel in Europe, you kind of don't have an option except to be seasonal. I remember going to a grocery store in May because we had a group coming and they were very, very committed to their greens. And the grocer had tons of greens. So we were there a week ahead. The next week I went back, no greens. And I said to him, where are the greens? And he said, oh, they're gone. And I said, okay, but when are they coming in again? He said, next April. So I had to switch up to something else. So yeah.
What about herbs and spices? Do you use those much?
Yeah, I do. I use some. I don't use a ton. I've mastered a few Indian dishes because Robert really likes Indian food. I'm kind of a basil, oregano, thyme, rosemary kind of girl, and hot spice. I love hot taste. Red chili flakes in particular. I use a lot of cinnamon in my cooking, some nutmeg, not much. I'm really not a
So this,
big,
so those are not regularly recommended for macrobiotic people. So this is your contribution, adding a new color to the palette.
I think when I studied macrobiotics, I remember I was in Brookline and we were all in a kitchen. There was a Japanese chef at the head of the table, and we all had to, our knives had to hit the cutting board at the same time as his. And he was way too slow for me. I'm a chef. I was like, come on, man. So I'm slicing and slicing, and he kept kicking me out of class. Too young, get out. Too young, get out. I was like, whatever. So whatever. So I went to
Red
meet Joe.
hair.
And I remember going to meet Joe and going, like, what is going on here? And he's like, well, you know, and he gives me this whole thing. And I had Osawa's book in my hand. And I said, who is this guy? And he goes, oh, he's the father of macrobiotics. He was my teacher. I'm like, yeah, well, he talks about lust and passion and freedom, and we have none of that. So what's going on? Where is he? No offense. I want to go study with him. And he said, oh, he passed away. And I thought, oh, crap, too much lust. So I said, well, I don't understand why this is so grim. If this is supposed to be so great, we can't use cinnamon. We can't use garlic. We can't use this. And he said, you use too much garlic. It's why you're so dramatic. I'm like, whatever. But why aren't things happier? And he said, study well and teach happy. That was his answer. And I thought, ugh. But I did. Because to me, what many of us have done to create the condition that may have brought us to macrobiotics, because very few of us came to it because we were in robust health and said, hey, let's go eat seaweed. My husband did. I have to say my husband did. But many of us came to it because he had a condition. We didn't create that health condition from cinnamon or basil or garlic. We created that condition with Oreos, Diet Dr. Pepper, burgers. Like, that's how we created it. We created it with extreme foods. So the more I studied and the more whatever limited knowledge I have, I gained was, wait, we need to rethink this. And having had long conversations with Diana Voley, Geraldine Walker about what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? I was teaching, Micho asked me to run the kitchen in Beckett for a summer. And I went up and it was blistering hot. And he had guests coming, and they keep handing me turnips and rutabagas to make nishime. And I'm thinking, it's July. What, are you kidding me? And they said, but we have cases of these. I'm like, I don't care. We went outside, we picked all the basil, and we made udon noodles with pesto. And you would think everybody in the dining room was drunk. It was like a party. And I got into so much trouble. And I thought, it's basil. Like, when did we become so dogmatic that we think that basil, which is actually a blood purifier in Chinese medicine, will harm us? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's where I began, I guess, my road of rebellion of, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. So
So
yeah,
are there some guidelines that you do follow? Like there's a lot of this kind of religious kosher style that certain things you just have to avoid. And that gives us kind of a negative bias also about food.
yeah.
But there are some kind of guardrails or guidelines or something. What would you say? What are the terms you use? Do you say these are foods we're going to avoid, reduce, rarely, in order
My
to be less
guidelines are
judgmental?
being vegan, of course, animal food, with the exception of honey. I really don't believe that honey is abusive to the bees, or, you know, like, I mean, we don't use a lot of honey, but like I'm vegan to that point. For me, I think the most unnatural food we can eat right under ultra processed foods is dairy. I think that dairy is like a skull and crossbones. I don't think we should touch it. And then followed closely by meat. I know a lot of people eat fish and that's their choice. It's not mine. I think the lower on the food chain people can go, if they're choosing animal food like eggs and fish, are probably your better choices. That said, there are health conditions where people need certain things. I feel very fortunate that I've been a vegan for 40 years and I don't need any of that so far. But I'll say to you the thing I always say, which is, if somebody I trusted and loved came to me tomorrow and said, your health will not improve unless you eat fish, or unless you eat eggs, or unless you eat a piece of steak, I would do it with gratitude to the animal, but I would do it. So it's not it's not so much an ethical vegan thing as it is a health thing. I think that animal food does not bring any good news to our health at all. With all the saturated fat, the hormones. I mean, at least here in my country, where we raise everything with hormones and antibiotics and GMOs and whatever, our food system is pretty compromised. So for me, the big guidelines are animal food. And then on the next tier would be like white flour, white sugar. We minimize that. Like if we're out with friends and somebody says, have a bite of this cake, I don't, throw a fit and go, my God, do you know what sugar does to you? I'll have a bite and, feel like I'm drunk and that's it. So our guardrails are really, my biggest guardrail is dairy. I will avoid it like the plague.
So it's not the lactose intolerance, it's
Although
what
I
are the
am,
reasons?
although I am, but it's really the hormonal makeup, the protein level, the fat level that humans don't process. It's not made for us. You never see a mama rabbit walking down the street and saying to her baby, hey, there's a cow over there, go grab a drink. It just doesn't happen. So we're the only ones except domesticated animals that do this. So it's one of the reasons why we're bigger, one of the reasons why we see so much reproductive cancer, I think. So yeah, that's a huge guardrail for us.
So for
I mean, if somebody
calcium
tells
or
me there's
other,
an egg in something, I'm not gonna, again, have a fit, but like cheese, milk,
for the nutritional benefits that come from dairy, I mean, certainly a lot of parents think that it's essential. It obviously it isn't in Asia, but what would you use as the source for calcium and other nutrients that you get from dairy?
There's just so many other options. And once a baby nurses and weans, which hopefully mothers are nursing. I mean, if they're not, that's a whole other discussion. But let's say a mother is nursing. By the time that baby weans and goes to soft cooked food, all you have to do is cook rice with sesame seeds in it and, puree it through a baby food mill. Start making pureed greens. There's so many ways, and we don't need as much of all of that as we think we do. Like we've all been conditioned to, we need this much protein, we need this much calcium, we need this, we need this, we need this. And what we forget is many of our deficiencies come from excesses somewhere else. So when the body's working too hard at other things, you end up with deficiencies. So for me, I don't think we need to worry so much about that. I mean, we're going to have to worry going forward, I think, as our kids become less active. The more our kids are sitting around on the couch with computer games and their phones and devices and not being outside running around, stressing their bones and getting stronger until they're 21, that's going to become a problem. I think we're going to see bone issues in kids a lot earlier in life because they're sedentary now. And
But aren't there
in
some issues,
parents' defense, parents are afraid to let them go out because there's so many creeps in the world. But I don't know that that's as big a concern as, I don't know. I mean, I'm older. So, I mean, when we grew up, we left the house after breakfast and we came back at dinner when somebody called us. Like that was it, out the window. So now I think parents are more afraid and more protective. So the children are less active. And I think maybe not this generation, but the next one, if we don't start getting our kids active again, I think we're going to see bone trouble earlier in life.
so
And then I don't know.
and thinking about planning your meals, then how much are you thinking about nutrition as opposed to just flavor and taste and enjoyment? Like you say, protein is an essential part in a vegan diet because you're not eating animal food. But obviously, your grandparents didn't think protein; they thought a balanced meal.
Yeah,
So how
that's
does
kind
that
of how I
relate
think.
to how you?
I kind of really cook intuitively now, much more than think about nutrition. I mean, there's things that have been ingrained in me over the decades of macrobiotics. Like there's greens in every meal. There's some kind of green, leafy, or broccoli in every meal. That's just kind of the way it is. And that's like become this, you do it by rote. Intuitively, I search for variety more than I do nutrition, knowing that if I get variety, I'm probably getting everything I need. And protein's a big one for us because we're really active physically. I'm on my feet all day, unless I'm writing. We go to the gym a lot. Like we're very physically, and we walk everywhere. So and as we get older, we all know you need a little bit more protein to keep your muscles strong. So that's the only some kind of nutrition focus that I go, oh, are there beans in this meal or tofu or tempeh? Like, did I put a protein in this? And it might just be a millet red lentil soup because millet's high in protein, quinoa's high in protein. Like, it's not a conscious, do I have this, and this in the meal as more as it is intuitive. And after, like, let's say a day, I don't make enough protein. The next day we go, oh, I felt that at the gym today. Let's make sure we double up on beans or something. Once you become in tune to who you are, it's pretty easy. The cooking's really easy.
You say leafy vegetables. You haven't mentioned about root vegetables.
We eat tons.
Any
We eat
particular,
tons. Carrots,
what about
parsnips,
nightshades?
rutabaga. What's that?
Nightshades?
I do use them. I do. I love them. There's some I don't use. I'm not a big pepper person. Like red bell peppers, green bell peppers, they're just not my thing. Every now and then Robert will say, well, you should make stuffed peppers. Oh, okay. I just don't, I don't get it. But I love, and I don't adore eggplant. But if somebody, when I had to give up tomatoes when I was sick, I thought death would be better. Like even more than chocolate and coffee, I was like, what, no tomatoes? Death would be better. So tomatoes are back on the menu, eggplant now and then. We use tomatoes pretty often, cooked usually, unless they're cherry tomatoes, and then they're in a salad. But I would say we use a lot of cooked tomatoes. And we feel pretty good about it. Like I
And
don't see
potatoes?
any difference in my joints or nothing.
Potatoes?
Roasted in the oven with rosemary, tiny little ones, like little fingerlings, every now and then. Robert's not a potato person, so I love them, but I'm not going to cook them just for me. So you kind of, when you live in a household with more than just you kind of have to accommodate everybody's taste, unless it comes to bananas, then he's on his own. But it's kind of that whole, accommodating him and he accommodates me, and yeah, so. But like things like lotus root, we love. Daikons on the menu several times a week. Like lotus root's about to go out of season, which makes us sad. The other day, I was talking to you yesterday, the other day I made a banging Kimpira, Micho style, and put seitan on top, and it was amazing. So like we cook some very traditional dishes too, but like we were just in Italy and Robert tripped on a curb. I fell the very first day we were there and sprained my forearm, and Robert tripped because he took his glasses off and broke a bone in his shoulder. So I've been cooking hijiki, like, to help his bone to heal. And the doctor is amazed. He's like, how are you healing? It's only 2 weeks. And I'm thinking it's hijiki. So, really simply carrots and onions so it's kind of like we're in a challenge right now, but it hasn't changed our level of happiness in life, or we just like we're both we're making fun of each other because we're both klutzes, like it's that kind of thing. It's a drag, but it is what it is. It's a drag, but it
So besides herbs, there's all these other condiments and salt or sea salt or Himalayan salt. Do you have a comment about what kind of salt you use and about the concern about microplastics in salt and
well,
how much you use?
I'm very blessed. I use 2 salts. One I carry back in my suitcase from Italy from Trapani, and there's supposedly no microplastics that they deal with. And the other salt I just discovered, I was working in Provence last October, and I discovered the sea salt from the little island of Camargue off Provence, and I'm obsessed. It's this white, flaky, exquisite salt. We went to their salt ponds. I mean, it's as natural as we can get in the world. So I've been using that. I don't use a lot of pink salts. My own experience is the colored salts, pink, green, gray, red, black, they give me a headache in the back of my head. They're too young for me. Like I instantly know if I've used one of those salts, I just feel like, whoa. And I feel like it's not really a headache. I feel like my skin's too small, like very tight. Like I want a glass of wine and I never want a glass of wine. Like I'm not, but if I have a really strong salt, I feel it throw me off. So we use white salt mostly in our house. Black pepper, sometimes, chili flakes a lot. But I think the chili flakes help us to feel lighter because we're so active. They make you sweat a little bit, you feel more yin. So yeah. And my biggest vice in the entire world is espresso. I have one or two a day. One
Just
or two a
one.
day. Little tiny one, that's it. I kind of would not want to have to give that up at this stage of my life.
What about pickles and some of the
Every
other
day.
Japanese condiments?
We buy takuan from Eden. We do have that, but as now it's going to start to get warmer, we probably won't eat as much takuan because that's very sort of. Robert and I made takuan when we were younger together, and I remember making them. I hung the daikon outside for 3 days, let it dry, brought them in. We made this big crock of pickles, and we worked all day. And I said to Robert, "Okay, when are the pickles ready?" He said, 3 years. I'm like, 3 years? What if we don't stay together? Who gets the pickles? I'm getting the pickles. So we made takuan, so they're very young. But Robert makes sauerkraut. We make kimchi in our house. In the summer, we'll make cucumber pickles with like garlic and chili flakes. And yeah, we eat pickles every day. Every single day we eat fermented foods. Plus we eat miso, and soy sauce and those things. Like we
So you
kind of live
feel
this really sort of life where we go back and forth between Asian and Mediterranean and Asian and Mediterranean. Like I put miso in my pesto and, basil in an Asian dish. So it's kind of like I have found this way that honors everything that Micho taught me and yet honors my ancestry as well. I mean, it's a
so
good balance
miso
for us
or
right now. Who
fermented
knows?
foods. Fermented foods is an essential component in
I think so because your
lactobacillus or
gut is
flavor
your
or
composter.
so it is the lactobacillus. You're benefiting from
Yeah.
it helps with digestion.
Yeah. I mean, it helps keep things, I think that fermented foods help you to have like a flatter stomach and, you're more regular, you digest better. And as a result of fermented foods, if you want to delve into the Chinese medicine part of it, you're less prone to depression and melancholy because that governs that emotion. So when your gut health is good and you look around the world today and everyone's on an antidepressant, everyone's sad, everyone's angry, everyone's, got all these weird negative emotions. And a lot of it is because of the way we digest this terrible food that we eat. And it's not just in America, it's global now. I mean, even in Italy where food is sacred, you can't step into a grocery store without finding an aisle of junk food by the register that kids are all attracted to. And you think, wow, even here, like even there where food is crazy, everything's about food and celebrating the meal. We're finding a way, manufacturers are finding a way to compromise food and digestion as a result. So, that's why you're seeing this whole global sort of depressive, negative mood of everybody, no matter how good things are. We don't see them as good because we just can't see it. As Micho used to say, you can't see the forest for the trees. I remember once we were sitting, a bunch of us were in Brookline, and there was a pollution thing happening in a local river, part of the river, the Charles River, and we were all making signs we were going to demonstrate. And Micho walked in, he goes, "What are you doing?" And he didn't say it like that, but "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, we're going to go demonstrate." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because they're polluting the thing." And he said, "Listen, when we clean up this," and he pointed to his gut, "then the planet will clean up because we won't be able to bear it." And I thought, "Oh, that's great." And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, well, that's not happening. So we're going to go protest." He said, but he kind of was telling us it was futile until we eat better. We're not going to fix the planet. We're just not going to fix the planet. So, and that was years ago. So it's all about digestion for me.
So you said something about using honey and also about making cookies. So what is that? What's the sweetener that people crave, or is it fruit, or what would you recommend, and what do you do, and you and your husband?
I think that humans will always crave sweet taste because when we were tribal and nomadic, we knew that something sweet would be safe. If something was bitter or sour, you could die from it. But we always knew if something was sweet, it was okay. Mother's milk is sweet. So it's a flavor that brings us comfort, that makes us happy. It opens up the middle organs. We feel more relaxed. I use a sprouted whole wheat flour, which is flour made from the actual sprouts of the wheat. So it's softer, it's a little lower in gluten. Not that I'm concerned about gluten. I use rice syrup and coconut sugar as my sweeteners. Rice syrup because it's fermented, coconut sugar because it's low glycemic index. And then I'll use like an sweetened chocolate chip. We use a lot of nuts and dried fruit in cookies. And when I say cookies, they're about 2 inches, in diameter, and we'll have 2 a day. Like that's it with an espresso. Like that's our big woohoo, it's party time. So we're and I think when you eat in a balanced way, nobody ever wakes up and goes, dessert, what was I thinking? That's a stupid idea. But you don't have apple pie chasing you down the turnpike in your dreams if you're a little more balanced. You'll like it, but if you don't have it that day, you're not going to cry. So it's finding, and everybody's balance is different. And nobody's ever balanced, ever. Every now and then we pass through it and go, oh, I'm in balance. And by the time you say it, you're out. Because you've got all these influences, environmental, pollution, whatever, throwing you off. So, as intuitively as you find what is balance for you, then you get to play. So for me, like making cookies, first of all, I love it. I was a pastry chef. And now that I can adapt and create recipes that are A, delicious, and B, are not going to harm us, like that's the greatest satisfaction in the world for me as a former pastry chef. So like when I remember recovering, I was a pastry chef when I got sick, and I remember thinking, oh, I'm poisoning people all these years as a pastry chef after I studied with Micho. So now I can give people cookies and not feel bad about it. So yeah, so that's our big indulgence, is a couple of cookies every day. And I feel like if you do a little bit of sweet every day, like follow the European 3-bite rule. After 3 bites, you really don't taste sugar anymore. So have your 3 bites, enjoy them. If everybody did that, you wouldn't have the binging that's so characteristic of macrobiotics. Like we're so rigid, so rigid, so rigid. And then somebody brings out a beer and you go, I'll just take the whole keg, and you drink it. Or I'll just have the whole cake, or I'll drink that whole bottle of wine with a straw, or because we crave balance between yin and yang. And when I was with Micho many years ago, I remember like yin, you didn't want anything yin. You wanted to be as yang as you could be. And I remember sitting with Diane with a glass of wine, actually, and saying, what's so wrong with being yin? We're girls. Like what is up with this? And so we had this long conversation with him, and he sat there and he said, oh, maybe not so bad to be yin. I'm like, yeah. So it's kind of, so you kind of have to, I always say that macrobiotics is the easiest thing in the world to do and the hardest thing in the world to teach. Because we're all different. We're all individual. I can give you general guidelines, but what's great for me may be terrible for you. Like you may have 2 cookies every day that you bake and feel awful. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's hard for me sometimes to teach because I don't, yeah.
Would you say that again? That's interesting. It's the easiest thing to do and hardest to teach.
Hardest thing to teach. I mean, theory, I could stand at the blackboard with the best of them and draw spirals. That's great theory. But the reason I chose cooking was because I could talk to you for 4 hours about a carrot. And then you leave and you go, well, yeah, but what do I do with a carrot? I don't know. If I teach you everything I know about a carrot's energy and its nutrition, and then I teach you how to cook it, I've given you a tool. So when I say things like in our house, we have 2 cookies a day with an espresso, and that serves us. Now, I may say that, and somebody who's watching this starts doing that and feels terrible in 2 weeks. Their condition is different than mine. It's the most basic difference is when people write me emails and they go, I made your lentil soup. It didn't taste like yours. That's right, because it tasted like yours. Mine. My soup doesn't taste like Robert's soup. We kind of like all have these different, right? So that's why I say it's the hardest thing to teach. Because some women do great with tons of grain. Many women do not. Like, I can't eat a lot of grain. It makes me feel heavy and I don't like it. I don't like how I feel. My digestion's not good. Robert could eat grain until it flies out of his ears. It's a guy thing. So that's why I say it's hard to teach. I can teach you general guidelines. Then you got to find your way. And it's a stumbling journey. You know, you're going to try this, it's going to work. You're going to try this, it's not going to work. And you kind of, and even with counseling, like we try to help people, help to guide them when they're struggling with their health, but all we can do is give them sort of like padded guardrails so they don't fall into the abyss. You kind of really don't know what's going to serve them until, you know, they come back and say, I tried this, it didn't work. Okay, well, let's shift it and do this. You know, some conditions appear to be young and they're really more yin inside. So I think macrobiotics is very difficult to teach. I love it, but it's a very big intellectual challenge for me to teach it. Although I love teaching. So yeah, I love a challenge. What can I say?
What about the peeling vegetables, organic vegetables? Like, what's your guidelines on that?
I don't peel anything unless it's obviously waxed. Like sometimes we cannot find in the winter a rutabaga that's not waxed. And Robert really loves them, so we do peel those. Otherwise, I wash things. We go for as much organic as we can. We belong to a farm share here, so we're very lucky from April until the week before Christmas. We have access to a local farm that grows organically, and so we're pretty lucky. If you don't have that luck, then the advice I'll give you is do the best you can. I would never say to somebody, don't eat carrots if you can't find them organic. Get over it, wash them really well, and, you know, and eat carrots. It's not worth for me, giving up a vegetable because you can't find it organic. Your liver can do the job. You know, you'll be okay. But if you can find organic, find it. And I know in the States, organic and non-organic prices are now very aligned because there's so much demand. So there's kind of no excuse. You do the best you can. Like you really do the best you can.
So what about there's so many fad diets, you know, I mean, and even vegan is a bit of a fad diet or
Yes, it
plant-based,
is.
and all the kind of artificial foods that are being created to satisfy those people who wanted a hot dog or a hamburger or something, and they're making them out of pea protein. Any comments about your selection of those things?
I don't use them. I don't use them. I use one vegan meat, which is made by the unfortunately named Tofurky, because I know Seth for years, and it's made from tofu, and it's a little like an Italian sausage, and I use it sometimes in the summer if I want to make an Italian sausage dish for a party. That's it. Otherwise, we use tofu, tempeh, and beans. I think that what we've managed to do in this country is find some little thing to demonize because it's too much for us and too much for special interest groups to look at the big picture of how we eat. It's not gluten that's making us sick unless you have celiac. It's not too much, so it's not this little, it's not that. It's the whole picture. Like the whole standard American diet needs to do a 180 and maybe not be vegan, but they at least have to start eating real food. It has to be real vegetables on the plate and whole grain. Like and until we do that, we're not going to see the change we think. Yes, you can be paleo for a while and you'll lose weight and think that you're, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's actually a vegan. Then he is a vegan. He's a vegan. You'll hear about the blood type diet, and now you hear Dr. Gundry talking about don't eat lentils because they have lectins in them. They do have lectins, and then you cook them, and the lectins are destroyed. So unless you're sitting down and eating a raw bowl of lentils, you're probably okay. So it's like they find these little nitpicky things, always in the natural realm. Nobody ever says, by the way, that special sauce on the fish sandwich at McDonald's, here's what's in that. And have people go, pardon my language, holy shit, I'm not eating that. They don't do that. They go, there's lectins in those lentils. You might want to rethink those lentils. So it's kind of this twisted, almost perverse way of looking at food. So, and all of the like lab meats, and we're going to make a cow from the scraping so that people can eat meat but not kill an animal, is such nonsense. And until we change the way we think about food, I know, good luck with that. Until we do, we will continue to make the same mistakes generation after generation after generation. Heart health, heart disease has been the #1 killer of Americans since 1973. It still is. We've learned nothing. And 85% of heart disease is preventable. Like, what the flip? I say that I want a t-shirt that just says WTF on the front, but that's me. You know, you watch people, you watch kids. I was at a meeting yesterday at a coffee shop, and I'm watching these kids. They're eating like a cream donut, and their nose is running, and the mom's like wiping their noses, and then the snot's running out. And I'm thinking, you're just filling up the snot reservoir with that cream donut. It's just like in and out, like there you go. So it's kind of like we're so disconnected from the impact that food is having on us. And now I just saw somebody make a comment. Now they're all like in a tizzy in America because colon cancer is on a massive rise among people under 40. And it used to be a late in life condition. And it's like, is nobody looking at the food? Like, the experts are stymied. Really? Like, really? Ultra processed meats. All these cured meats people are eating. There's a big backlash against eating vegetables now. Everyone just wants meat. Of course we're going to see this. What do we think is going to happen? You know, and when people say, well, you're just a health nut, I go, well, then that makes you a sickness nut. So to tell you. So yeah, I think all of the fad diets will, you know, sort of find their little niche that they stay in. And eventually, because you and I both know, we have seen a massive change in the way we eat. More people eat fruits and vegetables. We're up to a blistering 19% in America that eat as many fruits and vegetables as they should have. So it's kind of like, I think it's a very slow progression that people are slowly becoming tired of being sick and tired. Like, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. So they're kind of like slowly waking up a little. It's too slow for me, but I'm
but there
happy
must
for
be
any
some
progress we see.
You know, just to get into the social issue, there must be some cause of this craving for high processed food, whether it's children or adults, and more meat. There's something it's satisfying some craving that we haven't found an alternative for.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think processed foods, we've generationally become conditioned to eat. I was just reading an article about gut health the other day, and there's a whole family of bacteria that helps us to digest fiber and that kind of nutrient. And that bacteria is disappearing in the colon and being replaced by a bacteria. I can't remember it's like an acronym for what it's called, but it's designed, the colon is becoming adaptable to digesting ultra processed food. So that craving is not going to go away if we're able to digest it now. So like the next generation, in fact, the article said 2 generations from now, which is only 20 years, those people will be unable to digest fiber without some kind of supplement. So humans are miraculous at adapting, but what we're adapting to, who knows? Who knows? So I do think there's something about, you know, the high fat and the high protein of meat that makes us feel stronger. And as a vegan, you struggle with that more. Although I always hear Micho in the back of my head saying, people that eat meat, it's a false strength. And when you take that out of the picture and you start eating in a balanced way, you find your true strength. But for many of us, that feels weaker. It did for me in the beginning. You know, like the joke at the gym when I ate, you know, been a vegan for a long time, but it used to be that I could lift a car. You know, I'm very strong, and now I don't have the desire for it, but like I lost that kind of aggressive strength. And I think that's what happens. You know, and when people lose that kind of aggressive strength, you think you're weak instead. It's finding balance again. And everybody has to find a new balance whenever you make a change.
You obviously have a lot of experience, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of kind of a skill in selecting and making meals that are satisfying for you and for other people. But a lot of people don't come to their kitchen with the same kind of background that you have and
Yeah.
struggle even watching your classes and reading your books. What would you recommend for them to be able to create satisfying meals that are nourishing as well as satisfying and that minimize those cravings for things that are not so healthy?
I think that we have to be really conscious of our ancestry, number one. Like when I started macrobiotics, we came home, I did a seminar with Micho, and I was just infatuated with the whole thing. I cut the legs off our table. We ate on the floor. We ate only with chopsticks. And we were at a dinner at the local East West Center, and they were handing out chopsticks to everybody to eat, and they ran out. And the woman next to me was completely socially paralyzed because there were no chopsticks. And I said to her, well, you can have mine because I still remember how to use this thing. It's called a fork. So we came home, bought a new table. I'm like, that's it. I'm not eating with chopsticks anymore. This is making me crazy. So I think we have to look. I know for me, when we had to adapt our diet again from sort of therapeutic eating, which we did for 15 years, I looked at my grandmother. I looked to how my grandmother cooked. She was from Naples, Italy. She cooked a lot of vegetables and grains anyway, which I didn't even realize as a kid. They bought whole wheat flour and made bread because it was cheaper and they were poor. So I had like in my DNA this ability to go back to kind of a peasant kitchen and cook. So for me, I would say for people who are not sort of attuned in that way, you want to make sure that you have some variety of grains and beans in your pantry, tofu and tempeh, of course, and a really good olive oil, a really yummy, expensive olive oil that's going to give you the satisfaction of fat that you don't get if you don't use a good oil, if you're just using like a blend or, and you and I had said this conversation yesterday, I really never liked sesame oil. If you like it, use it, but it was never my thing. It's on my list. It was never my thing. It always felt dry to me. I'm like, why are we using this oil that makes you feel so dry? And Micho would say, well, olive oil's from fruit, it's too yin. And I'd go, well, what's wrong with that? So we kind of would have this argument. I'm like, you're drinking coffee. Why can't I have olive oil? So we would, he always said to me, you're so direct with me. I'm like, well, listen, dude, if you want me to teach, I got to understand it. So I think you have to kind of look at vegetables that you're used to eating and fruit. Don't be afraid of fruit. And I also think everybody, I think, should buy a vegetable that you've never cooked once a week. Go to this thing called the internet, find a recipe and make it. The worst that'll happen is you'll think, I will never eat a rutabaga again, or you'll try another recipe. And it becomes a gradual build of maybe you master 5 dishes that satisfy you and that you like. And then you go, okay, I'm really good at those. And then you start building your repertoire. I mean, I wasn't born a great cook. I started when I was really young. And the only reason I went into the kitchen when I was young was my family is a family of yellers. That's how they communicate. And I'm very noise sensitive always since I was little. And I noticed in the kitchen, there was no yelling. There was no fighting. There was my grandmother, her 8 sisters, my mother and her sister, and somehow they moved around each other almost symphonically. Nobody got into anybody's way. They kind of laughed. They were drinking coffee. They were singing. And I thought, oh, this is where I need to be because there's no stress in here. And so my dad built me a little stool with little painted vegetables on it when I was 4. And they started giving me little jobs like stir this or, roll the meatball or whatever the hell the job was. And gradually by 9, I could cook. So I wanted to be in the room that nurtured the rest of the house. If you don't feel that and you're just cooking for survival, you have to, a lot of it, and this is going to sound airy-fairy, I'm sorry. A lot of cooking comes from self-love. Like you have to think, I mean, L'Oreal tells us we are, you have to tell us you're worth it. I am worth making a pot of rice. I am worth making a pot of quinoa with roasted corn kernels, or I am worth doing that, because if you don't think that, your food won't be delicious. And if you think the energy doesn't matter, you're wrong. I remember cooking a meal for Robert and I had a really bad day and I'm kicking the cabinet doors closed and I'm making rice and miso soup and I'm just like so annoyed with the day and I didn't let it go. And I put dinner on the table and dinner was gorgeous. I mean, I put it on the table and thought, wow, considering the day you had, that's pretty good. And he sits down and eats it and he said, oh, did you leave the miso soup out all day? No, I just made it. He said, oh no, it's sour. Like, come on. Then he ate the rice and he goes, there's something wrong with the rice. It's got a really metallic aftertaste. And I said, you know what? Maybe we should go out for noodles at this local Japanese place. Maybe let's not eat this food. It really affected it. So I never cook when I'm angry, which is rare that I'm angry anyway. I never cook when I'm too old, never cook when I'm angry. And you really have to kind of put yourself in this little Zen state that says, I'm going to make dinner. And even if you're tired, I find, even if you're tired, you go in the kitchen and suddenly there's the perfume of onion sauteing and the water glistening over the vegetables as you wash them and the bubbling of the grain pot. And you just think, yeah, man, this is it. I'm doing this. And for me, that's kind of when I am tired, I just go in and then and there's nature, and if we love nature, you're in. It's so easy. Cooking's so easy. We complicate knife skills. Okay. You need knife skills, but we complicate it. We complicate it with dogma. We complicate it with being intellectual about it. It's intuitive. It's completely intuitive, as is baking. You talk to anybody, they go, baking's alchemy. You have to be scientific and weigh every grain and blah, blah, blah. Baking is passion. You either love it and you're great at it or you're okay at it. But I grew up in a family of great bakers. They didn't measure, they didn't sift, they didn't whisk, nothing. And everything was spectacular. So I go to work as a pastry chef with this French chef and I'm thinking, finally, somebody will teach these stupid Italians how to bake. He didn't whisk, he didn't sift, he didn't measure. And he taught me, he's like, baking is passion. So cooking is also passion. And it might be just passion for your own health. It might be passion for the planet, but you have to find your in. You got to find your hook that sucks you in. And then you're seduced and you're in.
Great.
That's how I see it anyway.
Thanks. Ganat has some questions or has
Yeah.
some interruption.
Hi, Christina.
She always does that.
Yeah, I know. I know. And Lenny has usurped my place. You're doing a wonderful job, Lenny. Christina, do you think macrobiotics still has a viable message? Do you think it still has something to offer? Do you think
there's nothing wrong with the message? There's nothing wrong with the message. The message of finding harmony with your environment, finding harmony with the people around you, cooking to serve the purpose of your life. There's nothing wrong with the theory. What's happened with macrobiotics is our misinterpretation of it, our dogmatic approach of it, our black and white, you are a classic case of X, so you must eat these foods. We effed it up. There's nothing wrong with Mother Nature. She will tell us exactly what we need to do, which is why she's quietly getting rid of us, because she needs to restore the planet. So we're on our way out. But I think that until we open ourselves up in a more yin way to let that message in and let your heart be more open, we will always see macrobiotics as a regimen that's restrictive, when in fact, it's just another culinary adventure. If you want to look at it from just cooking. Energetically, it's the most brilliant thing I've ever discovered, ever. And I know nothing, but it's the most brilliant thing I've ever discovered. So yeah, I do think it has a really viable message. It's how do we deliver it?
You think it needs a new name?
I've always hated the word macrobiotics. Like, what does that even mean? But the problem is, you'd have to go for a decade saying it's whatever, AKA macrobiotics, because people will be, what are they talking about? I mean, I think we should rely more on the theories of Chinese medicine. That's more acceptable to people than macrobiotics. And there's nothing weirder than Chinese medicine, nothing more black and white. But for some reason, people would be much more, oh, Chinese medicine. Oh, that's what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm in. I'll listen. Okay, you say
Even though they're
macrobiotics, and
not
they go, oh, no, no,
Chinese.
no, no, that's the rice and seaweed thing. No, 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 I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, Chinese
Gennaro,
medicine maybe has a more yin sound. I don't know.
are there other people who have questions, Ganat, that we want to entertain in the few
Oh,
minutes
there's a
that
bunch of questions
Christina still
here.
has?
Start
You
at
want
the
to,
end here.
why don't you administer for them instead of them talking? You can share some of their
Right.
questions.
Okay.
So what else do you drink? I'll just read some of the questions here.
Yeah,
what
beverages
What
is
else do
a
about
I
good
drink? I
question.
drink water. I don't drink tea. I'm not a tea drinker. Robert is, I'm not. Water and
But would you
espresso.
recommend for others? I mean, is there anything that you
Oh,
would
yeah,
suggest?
herbal teas. There's some beautiful flower infusions, blood orange kind of teas, or of course, there's green tea, matcha, a tiny bit of kukicha because it's very astringent in the body, but it can be delicious. So yeah,
And
oh,
espresso?
espresso, of course. The whole world should drink espresso. I haven't had one yet today, so
Oh,
but
you're still
soon,
pretty good.
soon.
Yeah.
I actually don't drink
what
it in the
about
morning.
what about children who eat very wholesome diets but are under the percentile? I don't know what percentile here.
Oh, the weight
Probably
percentile?
size and weight.
I
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
all those charts, I mean, unless the child is weak and really pathetically small, you have to remember all of those charts were designed for a meat eating culture. So they are bigger than us, they're bigger, their blood type is, they have more hemoglobin than us, more red blood cells than us. In many cases, I'm considered anemic by doctors because I'm not 13, 14, 15 in my hemoglobin. So those charts are designed for a standard American diet kind of eating. If the child has a lot of energy, they're strong, they're healthy looking, they're not pale or, sort of anemic looking, it's probably not a worry. I mean, you have to make sure a kid gets enough calories too, though, because kids need a lot of calories, a lot of fuel to grow. So even though they're eating a wholesome diet, it may not be enough volume-wise.
What
Other
about the
questions?
phytic acid in soybeans that's not breaking down in the cooking process, and soy for women for the function of the thyroid?
Soy for a function of women in thyroid can be soy can be problematic for that. But if you're eating fermented soy like natto, tempeh, soy sauce, it's probably okay in small amounts. If you're eating tofu and using soy milk, probably not your best idea. And the phytic acid breaks down in the fermented soy, which we eat more of anyway. And if your digestion is strong, tofu really shouldn't bother you. That's kind of like the least of your worries. If you find when you eat tofu or use soy milk, you get a bellyache or you feel a little bloated, switch to fermented soy and see how that works for you. Phytic acid is something that we soak out of in rice, but we can't soak it out of soybeans for some reason.
What brand of espresso do you
I carry it back in my suitcase from a little coffee shop in Naples. But you could drink Ely.
Starbucks?
If you're buying it in the States, you could drink Ely, but I carry it back from Naples. It's the best coffee in the world. Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that one. That's it. No Starbucks?
Tell us about
No,
chewing,
I
Christina.
won't
What
even go
about
into a
chewing?
Starbucks not to have a pee when I'm driving on the turnpike. I hate Starbucks. And there's a reason. There's a reason I dislike them so much. Oh yeah, I'll answer that chocolate question in a second. I dislike Starbucks because when September 11th happened, they were charging the rescue workers $1 a bottle of water until they got caught. And they said, oh, we didn't realize who they were. Well, they were walking and covered with gray dust. Who the hell did you think they were? And so I have no forgiveness for them. Sorry. Okay, so chocolate. I use 80% or higher, non-dairy dark, of course. I just discovered black cocoa powder, which is an unsweetened Dutch processed cocoa powder that tastes like chocolate heaven if you like it, but it's very bitter, very dark. I'm not a sweet chocolate person, so I kind of go with the higher percentages. I don't eat a lot of it. I used to eat a lot of more chocolate. I'm not as attracted to it as I used to be. I don't know why. I'm more attracted to like citrusy kind of desserts as opposed to chocolate, but I'm sure that will come back. I don't know.
What about chewing?
What?
You haven't talked about chewing.
Chew everything until it's liquid. But listen, I don't put soy milk in my espresso. I like my espresso like my men, dark and bitter. Although Robert's really sweet, so I really shouldn't say that. Anyway, chewing is essential, but don't let chewing make you antisocial. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't be the dude at the table that can't talk to anybody because you're too busy chewing. But generally, you will want to chew very well. You want to chew till your food is liquid, if you can. It's better for digestion. Micho used to say, no teeth here, teeth here.
Right.
Of course, his teeth were bad
Christina.
anyhow.
Yeah.
What about, I forgot what they're called, alcohols, sugar substitutes?
I don't know. I want to say no, Ginat, but there's this new one on the market, and I'm trying to find out more information about it. It's called Bocha Sweet, made from kabocha squash. And when you read the label, all it says is kabocha. So I took a package of it and I sent it to Suzanne Specialties, who makes the brown rice syrup that I've used for 40 years. And because they have a lab, and they tested it and they said, it's extract of kabocha. And it's no calorie, it's a sugar alcohol. It doesn't have that cold flavor in your mouth, but I gotta say, it's really highly processed, and so it makes me nervous. So I don't really use it, but there's something about it that's making me think maybe this is better, but I don't know. I'm gonna say they're not high on my list right now. If you need them because you're diabetic, find the best quality one you can. If you don't need them, then I would say skip it. But if you can find this one, I'm having a pretty high level of confidence about it. It tastes really good, and they make a confectioner sugar too, which is weirdly like the real stuff.
Something comes out of the lab, though. Nobody's doing this in their home kitchen.
Exactly. It comes out of a lab. I'm not sure I could go in the garden, pick it, and make it. I'm not going to eat it.
So
But
in terms of
sometimes
flavor,
it's essential for a condition, Lenny, like diabetes, and stevia is just terrible. And, so this one I see it could be a kind of a neutral option. I do soak my rice, not overnight. Do I soak it overnight? I soak it for at least an hour, and then I throw the soaking water away.
in terms
I
of
saw that.
the flavors, you were talking about bitter and you were talking about sweet. What about the umami flavor, and how do you achieve that?
Best flavor in the world. I achieve that with a weird combination sometimes. Like when I cook tempeh, I cook it with olive oil, soy sauce, and balsamic vinegar. And I get this lovely umami flavor underneath the tempeh, because I'm not a big marinator. I'm too lazy. So I do everything in the pan. And I love umami. I get it all the time with different, a little bit of spice, but mostly things like soy sauce and miso will give me that flavor. What advice do I give to a woman to gain weight? Ha! You lucky person, you. You have to eat things that are richer. You have to eat more oil, maybe some avocados, some mochi. Be careful how you add your calories in, though, so you don't just become a skinny person with a belly. And you need to get to a gym and lift some weights, because that's going to help you to create some bulk. Light weights, but that's going to help you create some bulk.
Are there
Anything
other
else?
questions, Ganat? What about amasaki? You haven't mentioned that. I don't know. Do you ever make amasaki as a
I used to
natural? And
make it
there's
all
one
the
you can.
time. I can't get it anymore. And I really don't make it anymore, but I used to love it. We used to love it. Used to make it all the time. We used to get it from Charlie. Was it Charlie that made it?
Yeah,
Charlie
he made
made
it.
it.
Yep. But you
We
could
used to
make your
buy it
own,
from
right?
him all the time. I used to
But
make
you could make
amasaki
your own,
pudding.
or but you don't make it from koji and just sweet rice.
Not anymore. Not anymore. I used to, but not anymore. My food production days
So
are over.
when you said lazy, nobody considers you lazy.
I mean, I'm lazy in
That
that I'm not going to create extra steps. I'm going to just do everything. As a chef, you learn to be really streamlined. Like, do I need to dirty this bowl to marinate this tempeh, or can I do it all in the pan? I can do it in a pan, do it that way. So as a chef, you always learn ways to streamline your process in the kitchen so that you're not the last guy on the line doing nothing. So it's that kind of thing. Date sugar and date syrup. You know, we can't really get it here in the States, but I did use it when I was in Israel and I loved it. So it's really high in minerals and vitamins. I don't know where it falls on the glycemic index, but don't let that trap you. The glycemic index is useless. And the reason I say that is, unless you're going to sit down and drink a bowl of date syrup, the glycemic index will change the minute you add flour or nuts or fat or protein to turn it into a dish. So the glycemic index was designed to be used by nutritionists, and somehow it got released to the public, and we don't know how to use it. So the date syrup is a lovely thing. We just can't get it. I can't get it in the States unless, you know, I pay a mortgage payment. So, but it's great stuff.
We want to make sure that you get acknowledged, Christina, for the work that you've been doing with PBS, with books, with your travels and your teaching. Because what Gannat said about how alive is macrobiotics, you're one of the people who keeps it alive, and you've reached thousands, tens of thousands of people, and so you must get feedback from these people too.
We do.
Can
And
you share a
mostly
little
what
bit
we
about?
hear, Lenny, mostly what we hear is interesting. People say things like, I didn't realize what you were doing was macrobiotics. Because I don't say it very, Mitchell used to get mad at me because I didn't say it enough. But I kind of bring it in through the back door, if you will. I talk about Chinese medicine and, you know, this affects your liver and da 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 da. So yeah, but thank you. It's my goal in life is to leave the world a little better than I found it. And TV is a really big classroom, a really big classroom. Somebody just said Trader Joe's has date syrup. I will look for it. And there was another question. What about mental illness and psychiatric drugs? I think one of the biggest faults of macrobiotics in the past, I don't know about now because I really don't counsel, but in the past was we said, chew better and your mental illness will be alleviated. And that's not true. It's just not true. Food can only do so much. If you have a problem with mental illness, it's not a stigma. It's a disease just like a common cold, just like cancer. You need to get proper professional help and let somebody guide you to a place of balance again. Like, please don't minimize it. Please don't think you can chew your way to not being depressed anymore. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So, I mean, you can certainly eat better and not eat sugar, and that's going to help you to feel better. And when you eat well, you will start to feel more in control because you are controlling something. You won't feel as out of control as people with mental issues can, but it's not going to solve it. You got to get somebody to guide you. That's my 2 cents on that.
Do you want to say anything about the book that you're working on, Christina?
I'm actually working on a new project. I'm very excited about it. It's Italian. It's going to be in Italian and in English, and it's the ancient vegan traditions of Italy modernized. A friend of mine who lives in Tuscany called me and said, did you know, I had to keep a straight face because we were on FaceTime. Did you know that Italy has a long tradition of vegan eating? Yes. So we're taking some ancient recipes and building them into a modern book, and it's going to be part of the next series that we'll film in Italy. So yeah, I'm very excited about the book. I also love writing because it's solitary and quiet, and I can say to everybody, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I'm writing. So I'm writing a book. I can't do that. So yeah.
Are you familiar with the new movie with Juliette Binoche, The Taste of Things?
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's like Babette's Feast, Chocolat. It's just, yeah. Anything that I can watch that's a celebration of food like that and cooking is just, I'm in heaven. Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah, you want to share that with people? Because I think also it kind of magnifies what you've been talking about for the past hour.
Yeah, it's a true story actually called The Taste of Things, and it's about this chef who falls in love sort of with his sous chef, although she wasn't called a sous chef at the time, and this whole relationship that develops around their love of food and cooking and creating flavors and textures. And it's just lyrical to watch. I'm not doing it justice, but if you can find it anywhere, if anybody saw her in Chocolat with Johnny Depp before he lost his mind, it's lyrical like that. It's this great celebration of food and cooking and the joy of eating and creating food for others. It's just, yeah, great.
Are there some other things you'd like to share that you haven't been able to explore yet in our conversation?
We talked about a lot. I just think that, keep your kitchen in order, keep things simple and fresh. People always talk about Italian cooking being so amazing, and it is. And one of the reasons it is everything is simple, fresh, and not complicated. I remember growing up, my mother used to say, all you need to make a great meal is good ingredients, olive oil, lemon juice, and salt. She didn't like garlic, so she didn't include garlic. And as a kid, I thought, oh, yeah, whatever. And now I find myself saying the same thing. All you need is olive oil, lemon juice, and salt, and you can create anything. I keep fresh herbs on my windowsill, so I always have them, even in the winter. It's kind of like create a room that is as sacred as life itself, because that's where you create life, is in that room. That's it. That's it. All about that.
That's great. That's a good one. That would be a good title for a book too.
Right? Maybe. Maybe the next one. I'm 13 in, so, lucky 13. This one's lucky 13. Yeah, so we'll see.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Ganat, do you have any other from you or from the participants?
Christina, just to thank you. No, we enjoy your TV show so much. Thank you.
Thank
What
you.
channel? What channel?
Could I just ask,
PBS.
could I ask a question of Christina?
Sure.
Christina, Carol in New Jersey. How do
How
we
are
get
ya?
hi, your cooking show in New Jersey? What channel is it?
You would be 23, 35, or 39.
23, 35, 39.
And
Great.
there's also something called the Create Network, but I don't know what the number it is
Yay.
in New Jersey. But starting March 1st, they're running the whole series several times a day.
Oh, perfect.
So look up your Create channel.
Okay, thank you. And then the olive oil that's accessible for us that you recommend, the best olive oil that, and the best pasta brand.
The best pasta is anything from a town called Gragnano, Italy. Gragnano, because it's made from really good wheat from Molise in Italy. And olive oil, it depends on where you're buying it. If you're in the city of Philadelphia, you want to go to De Bruno Brothers and spend $30 on a bottle of great oil. If you're in a supermarket, you want to buy a brand called Lucchini, Lucini. I've been to their farm in Italy. I have no skin in the game, but it's an amazing oil.
Oh, thank you so much. That's great.
Welcome so much.
Second choice on pasta, because I don't know if we can get that Granado. What's your second choice?
Anything that comes from Italy and is made from durum wheat.
Durum wheat. Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.
Is there a way that people can get that salt that you mentioned?
Yeah, so
Camargue salt? Oh, good luck. Go to Camargue. Go to Provence. Otherwise, just find a good white sea salt and you'll be great.
Someone asking about dental health.
Yeah, I don't know what she means by challenging, because that's some of dental health is constitutional and some is, conditional and hygienic. So I don't know what you mean by a challenge. I don't find it challenging. I, brush my teeth 3 times a day and floss. That's it. I use a water pick. That's it.
Sunshine and vitamin D.
There you go. Sunshine and vitamin D. All right, guys, I got a bolt. I have another event. I'm helping a mom with a special needs child adjust his diet. So I'm going to go meet her, and he's got a very limited window of when he can, be focused. So
Well, thanks
Thank-
again for all your
Yeah,
advice,
thank you so
support,
much.
and inspiration.
Thank you
Yeah.
guys so much. Agnat, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to see your little face. I'm glad you
And
got
happy
the
her
news.
recovery.
And yeah, continue good health. And Lenny, nice to see you after all
Yes.
these years. And everybody that came, thank you so very much for coming.
And
Thank
our
you.
love to Robert.
Bye.
Great. Bye.
So I wanted to respond to the woman that said that she's having trouble after childbirth with depression. And I wanted to mention two things. The first is vitamin B12. At the time of delivery, almost all of the woman's vitamin B12 is concentrated in the placenta. And normally mammals eat the placenta after they give birth, so to recapture the vitamin B12 that's concentrated in the placenta and the cord blood. But humans don't do this. They were doing this at the time of the hippies in the 60s,
Right.
actually cookbooks that told how to cook the placenta so it could be shared by the family and eaten. But normally humans don't do this. So the first thing is to supplement with vitamin B12, because this is a key issue in postpartum depression. And use the adenosylcobalamin or the methylcobalamin, not the cyanocobalamin, which is metabolically inert in us unless we have the metabolic function to split off the cyanide. That's a man-made poison attached to the vitamin made by the bacteria that are farmed to make it. That's number one. Number two, more salt. Cook with more salt, you will experience less depression, more energy, more sense of positivity, and so on. Then to Wendy's question about Celtic salt. Yes, I'm sure that it's abundant in, but there are major issues with salt from the ocean right now. And one of them is that no matter where the radiation accident occurs, the air is always on top of the ocean. There's always a respiratory process going on between the surface of the water and the air. Isotopes from Fukushima showed up in the milk of New Jersey cows a few days after that radiation bleed began. So radiation in the ocean is one of the poisons that has become part of ocean products, including salt. And so I personally value the salt from ancient seabeds that has been buried underground for millennium and has been protected from radiation and all environmental poisons. Right now, the land salts are more safe than the sea salts. I wouldn't have said this 15 years ago. I was certainly into Celtic sea salt and the Lima brand sea salt, but I stopped all of that at the time of Fukushima, and that's been like 11 or more years now. That was 2011. So
I would like to also add, Sylvia, if I could interrupt, is that you're right, it's Celtic, not Celtic. It's Celtic sea salt. It's the Boston Celtics, but it's really Celtic as in Irish. But Celtic is a brand. Celtic salt is the brand. Celtic sea salt is salt from the Celtic area of the world, but Celtic salt is a brand, and they sell a pink salt, a sea salt. They sell a land salt, Himalayan salt. Celtic salt is not just sea salt. So I think what Sylvia is saying is that sea salt in general is a risk, and it's a risk for a variety of reasons. Whereas the Himalayan salt, the pink salt, and it comes from Peru as well as the Himalayas. And there was also some in Michigan. There's a pig salt that's mined out of Michigan. But I think it's true that the land salt, although Christina had a recommendation for particular salt that she's found, we're not going to find that salt. And it's hard for you to know that there's a safe salt that comes from the ocean. But the salt that's mined, and of course you want to find it from a reliable source, because mining, can contribute some contaminants. But I know that I was at the salt mines in the Andes in Peru, and it comes out of the ground in a saline stream, and it's sun-dried. And you can, now that the internet exists, you can find the best quality salts online from anywhere. But like Sylvia, I would not encourage the consumption of sea salt.
Thank you. One more question. Is the SI salt still acceptable?
I have no idea what SI salt means.
SI.
See,
I don't know what that is.
Yeah. yeah, I think
That's been the
still-
macrobiotic recommendation since I've been doing
Sea
it.
salt? What is sea salt?
SI salt, it's sold on natural import website. I
Oh, I don't
forgot
know.
who makes it now, SI sea salt.
Is that still
Yeah.
acceptable?
Yeah, anything's acceptable. You're not taking that much salt that it's going to make that big a difference, but you have to decide for yourself. I don't think that there's a universal recommendation for anybody for anything. I've never tasted or been aware of SI salt. I don't know what it is. But I'm not the
Wow.
expert. I have my opinions.
I'm
Sylvia, what do
holding
you
Are
think
they
about
veget-
it?
Mm.
I'm holding the SI salt that Sherry Damaris recommended, and it says it's made with only the sun, wind, and sea in the clean water of southern Baja California, 500 miles from any pollution center. These natural salt crystals contain precious trace minerals for balanced nutrition, stone ground for purity and easier use, macrobiotic quality. It's from Arizona.
Thank
I have no
you.
idea. Any comments from what Christina had to say? Anybody have ideas or insights? She's obviously very impassioned and experienced cooking teacher.
I was encouraged by her reflection on the macrobiotics as a movement and as having a message and something to offer. And I like that she said it's presentation and it's all screwed up. It's not in line with the times now. And yes, it's for me, I agree, has a brilliant philosophy and a very practical how-to. So I was very encouraged by her opinion.
Yeah, and her back door to macrobiotics through the experience of eating good food and enjoying to eat together and feeling good after a meal, as a way of then saying, well, how did you do that? And then you get into some of the principles and guidelines, as opposed to starting with that and making a rigid kind of a religion out of something that's really an enjoyable daily practice of eating good food and enjoying it.
She said, cooking is self-love. That's true.
Yeah, another good title for a book.
Yeah. We need a title for the movement. Let's listen to Sylvia.
Yes, I wanted to respond to what somebody asked about sea vegetables in the ocean. And with salt, we digest the salt. As soon as it's in solution, it splits into sodium and chloride and has its various cellular metabolic functions. With sea vegetables or the protists, that's a separate kingdom from any other of the life kingdoms. The algae, each one has a colloid in it that is not digestible in the human gut. And people have trouble when they eat these colloids. Or some people have trouble, for instance, with Irish moss, with carrageenan. It causes digestive upset for them. And so this happens because no human can digest the colloid in sea vegetables, which collects garbage like trace heavy metals or radiation from the ocean. This colloid, which is specific to each of the different algae, for instance, alginate is the name of a colloid. Carrageenan is another one. These colloids are not digested in the guts of humans. There's been lots of research on this topic. This is why they are used in weight loss supplements. They make the person full, but they can't be digested. These colloids that collect radiation and garbage from the ocean, when we eat the sea vegetable, they are in us. They collect garbage from inside the gut, from garbage that's in the other food, like metals that don't belong there. And then when we eliminate it, it's gone. And it can go back to doing its work in the larger environment. These are very peculiar substances. They are not digested by humans. Therefore, we don't have to worry about the sea vegetables. I do have a concern about the sea salts, and I have no association with the brand called Real, R-E-A-L, out of Utah, Redmond, Utah, but it's the one I use, and I use it because it has a published, verified trace mineral profile. You want this with any salt. You don't just want somebody saying, oh, wait, it's so high in magnesium. Yeah. Show me the trace mineral analysis. And I have to tell you guys, the trace minerals in any salt are going to be less than 1%, no matter what you have heard, less than 1%. 3/5 of any salt is chloride, 2/5 of any salt is sodium, period. Trace minerals are a very tiny amount, and they're a very important amount. You most especially do want magnesium in your salt. So don't buy because somebody says buy this. Look at the trace mineral analysis for the salt and go by that. But I recommend land-sourced salt that comes from ancient seabeds that have been protected from the beginning of time from all the environmental pollution garbage going on out there. Okay.
Thank you. Gunnar, we really want to acknowledge your efforts in maintaining this whole health forum and allowing us to gather on a monthly basis and be entertained, educated, inspired by the people that you've brought on to this program. And we're also really encouraged by the positive results you've gotten from your medical establishment people, as well as your macrobiotic counselors. I'm sure they're all thrilled to know about your return to life, regaining your health, maintaining your vitality, and traveling to exotic parts of the world to continue to explore how you can live the full life that you've chosen to live. And bringing us along with you on this journey is really encouraging and positive. So thank you. Really, everybody appreciates the leadership you've provided and the inertial energy, however you do it, despite impediments of your own as well as technology. Here we are, all over the world, people enjoying your insightful, inspiring ideas. I hope that we'll continue. And like you and I have spoken, and maybe everybody should know, neither of us will be available in the month of April to, or at least I won't be. I'm not sure you might be there in the background, but
No, I'll
I
actually be
look forward to seeing you again in May.
Yeah. So in April, we will have a program. We'll have a different website one time and we'll advertise and let everyone know. We'll be using Ana Luisa Bolsa's website or Zoom platform. And we have a cooking teacher lined up. And I'm just waiting for her confirmation. If not, we'll see what it is that we do. So do come April 7th and think of me flying to India. When I was Lenny about the good report that I got from the doctor, and I think, well, I've been eating very well for months and months and months. I mean, I always eat very well and almost never, rarely go out to a restaurant, eating home cooked food, and also doing tremendous self exploration work of who I am and my beliefs and what I feel, and trying to get in touch with very deep parts of myself. And I think both, hand in hand, have paid off and shown good results.
Mind and body.
Yeah.
And I think it would be interesting among this group of people, if it, and this is maybe too small of a sampling, if you were to start this forum, at least in May, an hour or two later for those on the West Coast of the United States, and also those in the Middle East, would it be too late or a better time if we were to start this at noon East Coast time, which would be, I know, 7 p.m. Israel time. Anyhow, something to consider for the future.
You'll never get anyone from Japan at that time.
No.
How many people from Japan join on a regular basis, I wonder?
Oh, because the hour is so bad.
Yeah, just to say,
Yeah,
they
it's
can
all right.
come on the recording. They'll watch the recording. And thanks everybody for your participation, for your positive feedback, and I'm going to say shalom, lehitraot,
And I'll say sayonara.
sayonara,
Guys.
abiento.
I thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.